channels, and it's about ready to go live here on the YouTube channel. You can always go to the YouTube channel at Dr. Paul Dyer, Grandmaster Dyer, and you can get all the YouTube channels and all the things I have been doing and recording and talking about.
Ready to go live.
And so one of the things we do here on Bridges Live, when I go to any of my interviews, it's always about getting several things straight. I think a lot of us fall into a habit of not understanding what's really going on. And I'm not sure if that's a fault, or it just happens. But what I do know and believe is that it's happening to the Black community so much that it becomes something of being bamboozled or being misled or just not knowing what to do about it. So what do? We get informed, we get educated. We always say education is probably the best thing we can do. And then hopefully we do something about it. And I think there's times now that we're in 2022, 23, we're in the general election. We got some things that we're informed about, and we're still not doing a damn thing about it. We have burial grounds that's being desecrated here in Maryland. We have burial grounds that are being decimated here in Georgetown in DC. We have land being taken away from the Black community, and the Black community doesn't even know anything about it. There is so much going on against us that if you are in the know and you're an activist, you're like, how come we are not outraged as a community? And I'm not taking anything away from the George Floyds and anything that has happened since then. But I tell you, we should have been outraged and like that for about 40 years. Yes. And I don't know why it took someone to see visually getting their knee on someone's neck when they've had our foot on our necks for 55 years. And Brother Vaughn, I know we're going to talk about some heavy stuff.
Yes, sir.
And we need to talk about it because again, people are just not aware of what's really going on when it comes to. I'm going to layer it. It says Black people. I'm going to layer it says our people. But I'm also going to layer it says it's a human rights issue. It's a disgrace when people can desecrate a Black cemetery of remains of our historical people and no one else cares about it. It's a shame that Black boys, Black girls can't do a like whether it be be involved in a community, be involved in a sport, be involved without being segregated. That's an issue. Brother Vaughn, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, but what do you think about what I just said?
Oh, my goodness, man. You know, it is so true. And just like the background that you have there, the information, not only that has come from over 100 years ago, but what's right in front of us right now, what's being conducted right now, you know, from the taking of our rights, the affirmative action being taken away, which is never truly affirmative anyway. But it's in your face. And I think one of the biggest problems about addressing it is that you have the people that look like you and I that would say there's nothing wrong with it. They want to look in the other direction, and they teach people, hey, just ignore it. Hey, if you make too many waves, you're going to suffer. You won't have your good government job if you say anything. So just be quiet about your brother or your sister being wrongfully terminated. And we know that type of trauma and how that impacts the community. And that's just one aspect, you know. I used to be a DC firefighter, and the fire department used to be majority Black. In fact, in the 90s, it was 70% African American.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have all the documents. But you might believe it, but I'm sure you would believe it. 85% of all of the officers in that time were white, and 85% of all the disciplinary action took place against Black firefighters. So it shows you that, and even just things like in our schools where the quote unquote the miseducation or the diseducation where I know that there are particular schools in DC, high schools, where they're not even teaching, don't even have access. The children don't have access to the math of calculus, And I just think that, if a child wanted to go to college and pursue the science of engineering or any other discipline that would require math, that means automatically they have to take remedial math, they have to take an extra year. And so this
Here's crazy thing that's what leads me to it's so upsetting that parents who have their kids in these schools are not speaking up, speaking out, and stomping around, screaming for a change. And maybe because they don't show up to the PTA meetings, maybe because they don't vote on the Board of Education and who's running, maybe because they're not involved in the school. And so again, we're being lambasted and ran over and sheeped out. That's where I'm going to. And the reason why I call it sheeped out, because you're either going to be a slaughter or they're going to wear you.
Right.
Either one, they're still using you as a piece of as a piece of material.
Right. And there are those who are willingly being used, and no better example do I have than the sport of chess. Oh my goodness gracious.
Let's talk about that, because that's why we came on. First, tell people about how long you've been teaching chess, why you started teaching chess. We'll get into that, and then we'll get into the weeds of why what's going on. And I think we'll go into that. So let's get into why you started teaching chess.
Well, I used to be a DC firefighter, and I spent 3 of my years at the busiest firehouse in the United States, Engine 10, located at 1342 Florida Avenue Northeast. And during that time I was at Engine 10, it was in the early 90s when the homicide rate in DC was about 500 people per year. And but the people don't even realize what the wounded rate was. It was over 10,000 people per year. And so I went on an average call, on an average day, my average calls was 25 calls per day. On the first of the month, Friday, we would run up to 40 calls. And the devastation I saw in our community, all the wounding, all the killings of our young people, it compelled me to ask the question to myself, what could be done before the police or ambulance come for the children? And when I left the fire department, I became a group home counselor. And being low man on the totem pole, I was stuck with the kids that were the quote unquote worst problems or the problematic children. Well, I started teaching them chess, and it worked. And I got through to these children and found that these children had genius. Then I became a psychiatric technician, and I used chess on most of the mental wards in the metro area.
Wow.
And the company, and it worked. And the company I was working for, they started sending me further and further out into Virginia, dealing with other children. And at one point, I said 2 things. One, I'll never forget, I was at Children's Hospital. There was a little 4-year-old Black girl, and another one of my kids that was in the shelter, the emergency shelter for abused and neglected children. He was there as I was a psych tech, and I knew that I could get through to him with the chess. And I knew that if I taught the little girl chess, the little 4-year-old, that it could break through. And I said, you don't have to medicate them. I can let me teach them chess.
Right.
And they refused to do it. And this was back in the 90s, So, and then as I was being sent further and further out to Virginia, and we know again what was happening in DC, I decided to walk away from that job and commit myself to teaching chess to the children. And I've never looked back.
Now, I know I've done the study on the metrics of what chess does to the brain, how it elevates the brain, how it heals the brain, how it gets us to think. Most people know it's a thinking game, but it does so much more than just create a better way of thinking. It starts healing trauma.
Yes.
It starts healing trauma because what happens is the synapses starts formulating what you call hope. right? And it's able for you to dream forward instead of reliving things in the past. And that's the healing process of getting through trauma. And chess, the teaching of chess, it's not just the win and loss, it's the actual function of how chess does to the brain. We know it helps seniors, we know it helps young kids. It's like the martial sciences. We know that if you teach it, not just teach someone how to do a gambit or to do all these moves, it's really about understanding not just concepts, but how you think.
Absolutely. That's right. The process of logical thinking, the consequential thinking, the hope that you mentioned. It's interesting you say that, because I tell my children all the time, don't put your hand over the board. Don't show your opponent that you're not sure. Sit there like a statue of confidence, because they'll believe that if you do that, that even your bad moves are good moves. But if you start putting your hand over the board, you're going to give them hope. You're going to say, oh, well, they don't know what they're doing. But that whole process, when you mentioned the trauma, I volunteered at the Walter Reed Center and working with wounded warriors when it was in DC. And it was a beautiful thing that we had these soldiers, some of them that had been in infantry for 20 years, and they began playing. And I started taking some of my high school kids up there, and the high school kids partnered with these men, these soldiers, and they actually went out together and played in tournaments around the country, and it was, I saw one of these guys, Sam Perez. He was a captain in infantry for 20 years. So I don't know if he was a captain for 20 years, but he was in infantry for 20 years. And this guy went from a B-rated player to an expert.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. But the thing is that I've seen the children that they say won't sit still, won't listen, ADHD, all that, become champions. And we've taken them to national championships, and they've been able to sit for a tournament that might last for 3 hours. And at these national championships in 38 days that are going to be in DC, each game could last for 3 hours, and the children are going to play 7 games over 3 days.
Now, I don't want to talk about a movie. I want to get into what's really going on, but we know there's been movies out there that chess has played a part in. I'm trying to remember a movie. Is that with Terrence Howard? Is that where he started that chess house outside the school?
That was Cuba Gooding.
Cuba Gooding, that's what it was. Yeah, Terrence Howard did the swimming. That's what it was.
Yes. I thought you were going to say Fresh with Samuel L. Jackson, because that's a more practical and realistic application to it's really the life application of chess. And if anybody get a chance to see that movie, it's really, it's good. It's real. I mean, though it's fictional, it's more of a practical application. Right. There's been some movies, but they've never really got into the fact that, over 20 universities offer full or partial scholarships for chess, and their children as young as 12 and 13 have won those scholarships.
Slow that down and repeat that. Scholarships from universities of kids playing chess. How many Black people knew that?
Yes. Almost every single year since 1995, a 12 or 13-year-old child has won a full scholarship to the University of Maryland at Baltimore County just by winning 3.5 or 4 games of chess at one tournament. And they play 4 games, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. And then they get a full scholarship, and it waits for them until they finish high school.
That's incredible. If we just knew that parents, we know that so many parents don't know that. And we try to tell parents about this, and we still get a pushback saying no. Why? It's why the pushback? I mean, you've been doing this for a while, and we've been doing this but why the pushback you think is going on?
Well, Blacks, actually, this is one of the last frontiers sports, considering Blacks really weren't allowed to play in chess tournaments until the 60s. And almost immediately, 3 brothers became masters of chess, and all 3 of them were from the DC metro area. But consider that when you talk about the NBA, the NFL, the Major League Baseball level of chess, that is the equivalent of chess grandmaster. And children, even children as young as 12, have become grandmasters in the US, but not one Black child. But they let they let Maurice Ashley become the first Black grandmaster in the world in 1999 because they needed to give this facade of diversity in chess because chess was in the Olympics in the year 2000. And they really recruited him vociferously because he actually initially in 92 was taking an action that would have created almost a separate Black chess league with the best Black players. So they went and got him, pulled him in, and now he's the skinny grinning Black face of chess around the world. And he's become a multimillionaire. So he won't say anything about the fact that his impetus, his drive, his push towards doing this was the autobiography of Malcolm X and how he could connect the two together. And actually, I can show you a letter that he wrote even saying that.
Let's talk about the segregation in chess.
Yes.
Let's talk about it because you mentioned it, but let's get into people are intentionally keeping Blacks out. Yes. So let's talk about the segregation of chess.
And the thing is that at this point, it's actually being perpetuated and pushed forward by these, what Malcolm called house Negroes, or I often call Sambos, because they know that they are espousing and promoting the white supremacist ideology of their, I like to call them their white masters. And there are several instances that I could bring about, but just let me give you the numbers. They let Maurice Ashley in 1999. He was the first Black grandmaster in the entire world. All right. Though there had been grandmasters since the early 1900s, Maurice Ashley, when they let him in, and I'll tell you why I say let him in, we have to delve into that because that's part of the business of chess.
Right.
So they let him in. He was the first Black grandmaster in the whole world. And today, there are 11 Black grandmasters in Africa. And in the US, Maurice Ashley is still the only Black grandmaster. Yeah. In Africa, there are women who are masters, international masters, and grandmasters. In the US, not one Black woman has ever obtained the title of master. And it's not because Black people can't play chess.
That's not it.
Right. So there's been decades of conditioning, creating an atmosphere of no standard, no accountability, getting people that look like you and I to stand in front of the people and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with them. They're doing a great job. Oh, the novelty of seeing Black children pushing pieces in the park or in the McDonald's, or going out and not teaching them the aspects of the game and strategies that they can take what they encounter every day in life and take it to the chessboard. If you take a child from the quote unquote hood, a child that is subject to hearing gunfire on a regular basis, child, and then you put them in, and you teach them, and they sit in front of that chessboard, it's going to be very difficult for other people to defeat that child because there's no greater chess than what they have to deal with in life.
Every day.
Being on a board of 64 squares and 32 pieces, that's a whole lot easier than being in a neighborhood where you might get shot. So we had to take it from those standpoints and look at it and help transfer those life skills over, those survival skills over to what they do on the board. And then they can take what they do on the board back over to what they do in everyday life. One, you have to write your moves down. You have to write your opponent's moves down. And that is done using a combination of alphabets and numbers called algebraic notation.
Yep.
And each chess piece has a relative numerical value. So you have to constantly add and subtract. But just like in life, we have to be willing to sacrifice to get where we need to be. And
you have to learn how to add and subtract. And it's an algebraic equation through life.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But the numbers speak for themselves. But I want to tell you a little bit about how they have maintained control over this. And it's not a coincidence. When we talk about sovereign rights being taken away, I was thinking about before I came on today, and I was thinking, people in DC, they talk about they want statehood, they want statehood, they want statehood. Well, if you're going to allow white men from Maryland and Virginia to control what happens in DC for chess for decades and act like there's nothing wrong with it, and then they put a Black woman in front of them who doesn't know anything about it, who doesn't do anything with it, they come into DC and run all of this women's tournaments, they say are her tournaments, but I can show you right now, I can go online and show you that she doesn't have any tournaments under her belt. But it's
So
not.
she's a Sambo. She's one
Yes,
of those people that are selling black people for the benefit of herself, or
yes.
is she benefiting kids at all?
So it's for herself and her white masters. But it's not just her. There is a puppet president of the DC Chess League. The DC Chess League is a 80-year-old, mostly white organization made up of white men and some Sambos that have controlled chess for decades in DC. So the way it goes, the sole sanctioning body of chess in the United States is the U.S. Chess Federation, right? And the U.S. Chess Federation has been around since 1939. But like I said, blacks weren't even allowed to start playing in tournaments until the 60s, right? So, and then, so let me go back to why Maurice Ashley, I say they let him in, because these 10-person tournaments, 10-person tournaments that you play for 10 days, and if you win 6 games out of 9, then you get your type, your norm. So they have the International Master Norm tournaments, and they have the Grandmaster Norm tournaments. But I should preface that by saying that more than 600 million people play chess in the world, and there's probably about 4,000 to 4,500 grandmasters in the whole world, and probably about 6,000 international masters in the world. And so there are particular tournaments that they're called IM norm tournaments. And they're like obtaining a stripe in martial arts.
Right,
so
right.
If you get 6 points out of at one IM norm tournament, you get a norm towards becoming an international master. And then once you get 3 norms and you have the 2,400 rating, then you'll be an international master. The same thing goes for grandmaster. There are particular grandmaster norm tournaments that once you get 3 norms at 3 tournaments, then you can become a grandmaster if you have the rating.
Right.
The key thing about these tournaments, and just imagine, it's invitational. And we don't get invited.
We don't get invited.
Don't get invited.
So if you don't get invited, I don't care how good you are. If you don't get invited, it doesn't matter.
So let me give you a prime example. Once you reach the rating of 2,500, you have reached the rating of a grandmaster. In the year 1995, the brother, William Morrison, he's in Baltimore right now. He was 35 years of age. All these fives go together. He was 35, and the University of Maryland at Baltimore County gave William Morrison, brother, a full scholarship to college, though he had obtained his undergrad at Morgan. So that year in 95, Morrison reached a rating of 2535, probably the highest rating, I believe the highest rating ever for a black man in history, right? So he was on a team with people that became international masters and grandmasters. And guess when he got invited to an international master norm tournament?
Not until the 99, not until what? With that year 98.
2018.
What?
Yes. This is the type of stuff that goes on. And see, so when I say they let Maurice Ashley in, they knew that he was a quote unquote activist, and he actually put together what he called a unity chess tournament series, right? And he said that he was going to bring the best black brothers together, and he did. He did it once, he did it twice, he did it 3 times, he did it 4. After the 4th time, he never did it again. Why? Because they went and got him and started inviting him to these international master norm tournaments. He went out of and I can show you everything that I'm talking about.
Let me ask you a question, and this is probably I'm on so many levels. I need to calm down. I want to calm down. We have HBCUs in the Maryland, Virginia, DC area. There's roughly 6 HBCUs?
Yes.
In the area?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why aren't they pulling together to stop the bullshit?
Well, I actually coached Howard from 2001 until 2004. And they were the first, while I was there, they were the first HBCU to ever compete in the Pan American Collegiate Chess Championships, which is the NCAA's of chess. But today, Howard is being coached by a white racist named David Bennett. No relation to me, but what David Bennett recently did was he wrote to the U.S. Chess Federation and asked the U.S. Chess Federation to force my organization to have their name, to have our name removed, because David Bennett said that it was confusing to the people. In fact, I can show you some of the language that David Bennett said, but here you have a white racist coaching now at Howard University.
At Howard. Now, so now it goes back to, I'm a little bit upset at Howard. So why is Howard an HBCU? Whether it's, you know what, you want to hire the best teachers, I understand it, but you're hiring a known white racist.
Well, they don't know the information that I'm sharing with you, but I can, I don't have any problem. And everything I'm telling you, I have documented. Like, I have the letters that he wrote. It's ridiculous for him to say that Black people in DC are going to be confused by the name of my organization, DC State Chess Federation, and the name of his racist organization, DC Chess League. And that's all they are, is a league. But over the last couple of weeks now, all of a sudden, they're starting to do these events. They've announced these events, and they even proudly said it. Oh, yes, we haven't done these tournaments in over 10 years. And guess what? They're bringing in Virginia organizations to do it. But the main character in the action of keeping it away from our people is a known racist, an admitted racist, who many children have accused of inappropriate behavior. His name is David Mailer.
You mean is he a convicted are you talking about pedophile? Well,
that's what the children have said, but he has not been charged that I know of, because, but I have a 9-page letter, and in the one of the letters, the children, one of the actually, he was a grown man when he wrote the letter. And he wrote the letter in 2017. And in a quote from the letter that he wrote, he said, "We were alone in Mailer's basement, and Mailer told me that even if I screamed for help, no one would hear me. After a while, I finally gave in and dressed and undressed for him 3 times." Now, this was a letter written and signed, a 9-page letter written and signed about what Mailer had been doing to this boy and 2 other boys. But the thing is, if you can imagine, this same racist animal, David Mailer, he's the one that has recruited the woman that I mentioned. And the woman that I mentioned, her name is Robin Ramson, and she runs an organization called Chess Girls DC. And people get upset with me because I'm talking about a Black woman. But he strategically chose to hide behind her. But let's take it a little deeper. Let's look at his founding member of his board. You've heard of the Federalist Society?
Absolutely.
Okay. The 32-year president of the Federalist Society is a founding member of the U.S. Chess Center Foundation, David Mailer's organization. And that is Eugene B. Meyer. Eugene B. Meyer and David Mailer have been working together to keep chess away from our children for decades. This white racist David Mailer, he would do things like, he would have a tournament for DC public school children, and he would give a Black child a trophy saying, "Oh, you're the DC high school champion." And then he would turn around and have another tournament where there would only be 6 children there, and the only person from DC would be the son of one of his board members. And because that child played in the tournament, the child didn't win, but because that child played in the tournament, he would give that child the right to represent DC at national events where they can win scholarships. And he did that not once, not twice, but 5 years in a row. In fact, he made sure, David Mailer did, that no Black child has represented DC from approximately 1990 until about 2004. I spoke out about it, and he even went as far as defaming my name. Let me tell you how sick this guy is.
So let's go back and let's go back a little bit. You remember when the Olympic Committee with the gymnastics was being molested by this doctor, and the girls were talking about for decades. for like 10 years. They were talking about him. And then all of a sudden, who knows? I forgot how they found out, or some parents were, but there was a lot of people just turned their heads. Do you think parents are turning their heads because this guy is molesting them? For
Oh,
what reason?
you know, so for decades he's been in place, and he's recruited people from within the DC school administration. Like currently, he has on his board another Sambo, and I called him a Sambo to his face. Dr. Leonard Haynes, who was an appointee under the Bush administration. And when I found out about what Mailer was doing in '99, I went to the DC public schools, and I had a meeting with Dr. Leonard Haynes, who was a big administrator there, and a couple of other doctors. And Mailer sat in the room, and I told him what Mailer had been doing as far as conducting a tournament, and having one tournament giving a black child a trophy saying you're the high school championship, and then having another tournament where nobody even knew about it, and then sending off a child. Because see, what people don't know is that there's a tournament called the Denker Tournament of High School Champions, and each state sends their high school champion to this tournament. And there's a $20,000 prize fund, and if you win all your games, you get a full scholarship to college. In the year 2000, 5 children won full scholarships. But you have a man when and David Mailer, who, when my attorney Donald Temple, he asked him on December 22nd, 2004, he said, "Mr. Mailer, you've been teaching chess to children in DC for 13 years." And he said, "Do you know of any black children who are good chess players in DC?" And Mailer said with a smile on his face, "No, there are no good black chess players in DC." And now, mind you, this is a man who on his website said that he was going to teach chess to especially inner city children. But the way that he does it, he connects himself with, like right now on his board of directors. And I can show you part of what I'm talking about right now, if you allow me to.
Yeah. Let me.
Okay.
As people listening to this on the podcast and live, you can always go to the, you can go to the YouTube channel and allow and watch the video part of this show. Let me give you the participant so you can share.
Yes. Can you see it?
Hold on. I gotta bring it up.
Oh, okay.
Make allow. You would think I know. Let me see if I could just make
It
you
says I'm screen sharing right now.
Are you screen sharing?
Yes, sir.
Let me see. Yes, you are screen sharing. Perfect. Go ahead.
So this is the organization that's been incorporated since 1992, right? And I did tell you that Eugene B. Meyer is one of the founding directors of this organization. And Eugene B. Meyer is the 32-year president of the Federalist Society. And the Federalist Society, they basically control the judiciary in the United States at this point.
Well, actually, that Brett Kavanaugh, we know, was a Federalist.
Yes, right. And 6 of the 9 Supreme Court justices, probably all of them are realistically, are members of the Federalist Society. But this is this guy's center. Now look where he's located. In Silver Spring, right?
Right.
Okay. So Mission, Jamie Raskin, the world champion, and this is the white racist that the children have accused of pedophilia, David Mailer, right? That's him.
Jamie Raskin, we've been trying to get him to help us stop the desecration of a cemetery here in Montgomery County, and he has not responded. So I've had some issues with Jamie Raskin. He is, Montgomery County's his constituents, and the Bethesda cemetery. He has not done anything. So there's a lot of issues with Jamie Raskin at this time.
Well, see, so look, he was able to get a resolution that was when there was what's his guy's name, from the DC Council, saying that they recognize his work, even though they don't want to address it. And I testified in front of them. So this is his cast. You see Eugene B. Meyer right there? That's the president of the Federalist Society. That's the president of the Federalist Society that controls All of Trump's 226 judges came from this guy right here. He's Federalist Society. And this is one of the symbols on Mailer's board of directors. He's a senior that lives in Virginia, right? And I don't know this guy, but and this is the former council member, Tommy Wells, who initiated the resolution. And this is Mark Rottenberg, who is a 30-year adjunct professor at Georgetown University, and he's chairman of Mailer's board of directors. And Rottenberg he has an artificial intelligence advocacy organization, international advocacy, Rottenberg. You've heard those names before. But I want to scroll down and show you, because I know that we could. So look, this is Mailer with him and his child, right? His daughter and his son many years ago. But imagine that this man arranged for when this girl was 4 and his son was 8 months old, he arranged for them to defeat the number 27th ranked player in the world, and filed that victory or defeat of the Grandmaster Vladimir Epetian on the books of the U.S. Chess Center, and it stayed there for until 2009. And so this is the kind of stuff that he does, you know. So this is his board. These are people. See, Robert Tichy, a nationally certified advanced chess coach, right? He's been there since 2010, and for 3 years serves as the executive director, right? So now, Robert Tichy. So his board of directors, Congressman Jamie Raskin, honorary co-chair. Vicki Bullock, teacher, DC Public Schools. Look at this. Christopher O'Donnell, chief executive officer, DC Housing Finance Agency. Now, the question is, why is the current director of a DC housing agency, a DC agency, sitting on this man's board that's in Silver Spring? And remember, I mentioned Dr. Leonard Sambo Haynes, you know, so what Mailer does, he dabbles the opportunity for the Blacks to become members of the Metro, what is it called? Cosmos Club. It's called the Cosmos Club. And the Cosmos Club, they sold the Lafayette Park to the United States government in 1940. But look at this. You see whose logo this is? So they raise money using this logo. But let me cut to the chase. This is a budget that was funded, and look, $3,000 per class, right? That's what they pay him, and he's supposed to teach these classes. I'm sorry, he's supposed to teach these classes in.
He's not teaching.
But look where the money came from.
The housing finance.
The same housing finance agency where his board member is the executive director. And this is the executive director's executive assistant.
It actually sounds like they're laundering money.
Well, it's $25,000. That's just one time. Now, mind you, I have others that I can show you where they've been paying out this money to this Silver Spring-based organization that uses a PO box in DC. And this is where the emails where they got approval to give this money to the U.S. Chess Center. And again, they're paying this man $3,000 per class, you know, and you know, so.
And let's go back to this. Are African-American kids allowed to come in to get taught by these people, or they're not being accepted? What's going on?
Well, his headquarters is in Silver Spring. And so so our children are not leaving from Ward 8. They say that they're teaching in Atlantic Gardens and Atlantic Terrace. Let me see if I can go to where they are going to talk about what they're going to do. Yeah. Let's see.
this is so disturbing when it comes to why we feel like there's a systematic issue going on in many things we want to get into. We feel like we're being held out. But then when you dig into the weeds of things, when you dig into the background of things, there is a system that's being perpetrated and continued by only these white men that is controlling the board.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And so this is so here, look this. If applicable, discuss how your organization collaborates or plans to collaborate with other organizations. Now, for the Southern Hills Chess Club, now we're talking about the neighborhoods where Atlantic Terrace, Atlantic Gardens, where there's regular gun violence, and look, they even identify here's a ANC commissioner, and then somebody who works with UPO, so he put all that into this funding opportunity that they gave them, right? And let's see, these are, I'm trying to see where, but basically that's just a little bit. I have much more, but I've never heard of a chess class where somebody gets $3,000 per class.
How much you charge for your classes?
Well, we give free classes, and in fact,
you give what?
Our classes are free. We have free classes at the Woodridge Library every Wednesday from 5:30 until 7:30. We have free classes at Potomac Gardens every Thursday. And then we have free classes. We taught free classes in Atlantic Terrace, Atlantic Gardens, the Well, Petey Green Center in Southeast. We do free tournaments every weekend. But these are the kind of things that when you look at the money, and if this is one DC agency is giving this man money. This is just one, that's just a little bit, but let me show you how he does it. So his, what he doesn't have here is the full list of his members of his board, right? Because you don't see anybody for treasurer on here, right?
Correct.
And you don't see the name of Eugene B. Meyer on this board. Though if you pull up his tax records, which I can show you, you would see Eugene B. Meyer's name. But what I want to show you now is this organization. This is the racist organization. It's 80 years old, and this is their website. And they have controlled chess in DC. But now this is the puppet president, Ralph Michael. And Ralph Michael has been the treasurer of Mailer's board of directors since 1992. And Ralph Michael is the puppet president of this organization. And if you look here, there's nobody else on this board of directors that is a DC member of the US Chess Federation. This guy, like I said, this is the coach, current coach, no relation, but he's the current coach of the Howard University chess team. And this is the same guy that wrote and said that the name of my organization should be removed because people would be confused about the difference regarding the DC Chess League and the DC State Chess Federation. But look, so he lives in Arlington. Philip Lacey, he lives in Maryland. And these two guys live in Virginia. And Ralph Michael, the puppet president, Sambo, he's in DC. So my lawyer also on December 22nd, 2004, under oath, asked Ralph Michael, why is it that David Mailer does all the activities of the DC Chess League if the DC Chess League is a state affiliate? Michael said they abdicate all of their duties to David Mailer. So David Mailer's in Maryland and the DC Chess League is supposed to be in DC, then how do the people of DC get to see what chess is really about? They don't. So what they've done, they've created for decades an atmosphere of no standard, no accountability. And the people, when they talk about an education gap, the gap with chess is broad. I mean, like there's 4 national championships that are going to be held in and around DC. And they begin on December 9th. And I want to show you that because it's important that people see what's about to happen in and around DC. So These are the national, these are multi-million-dollar generating events, right? That are going to bring 2,000 children to our city. See that room? It's going to be filled up with children. A room just like that at the Gaylord Hotel. Look, see, Gaylord Hotel. That's December 2022. Then in 2023, you have the National Elementary Championships in Baltimore. I'm sorry, I skipped over one. I apologize. Can you hear me?
I can.
Look at this. National High School Championships are going to be held where? Connecticut Avenue in DC. You see that? You know, so this is not a coincidence. This is and so this organization, the racist U.S. Chess Federation that incorporated in 1939 in Illinois, guess where they incorporated recently?
DC?
Absolutely. Yes. So the world champion, Magnus Carlsen, who was just bought out by the chess.com, he's in Norway. Guess where he bought a chess organization? DC. That's right. And so they're going to bring 4 national championships. The children that are going to train for years to come to these events, and our children have no idea. They can go to these tournaments. If they win all their games, they can get a full scholarship in the championship sections.
You can stop sharing your screen for a second. Let's get back to us.
Yes,
so let's break this down. You have an organization that is keeping us out systematically.
Yes.
You have an organization that is creating funds from all over the place, from nefarious issues, from people that are exchanging money, exchanging hands over the behests of chess. And yet we are still being kept out because of not being invited. As simple as that. Just things are not being invited.
Yeah. So the kicker is this. It's only 25 cents to rate a chess game. So that most on a Saturday, a child plays its 5 games. John Rockefeller is charging now $45 in advance, $90 at the door. John Rockefeller V is the Scholastic Director of Chess in Maryland. And he has been the Scholastic Director in Maryland since 2009. And where they're bringing this national championship in 38 days from the day in PG County, they have never given a chess tournament in PG County. So the children in PG County won't really adequately be able to play because they don't play in tournaments. They see people playing in McDonald's. This is like never going to a martial arts tournament, and yet, they're bringing the biggest one in the country to your hometown. We're just going to be left out, but we can change that narrative.
That's why I'm going to say, how do we do this?
So what we've been doing, we've been giving free tournaments every weekend. And that's what we need to keep doing, giving free tournaments, signing our children up for the U.S. Chess Federation, though I truly feel that we should have a separate organization, like we used to have the Negro Leagues in baseball.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. Chess Federation has shown itself to be racist. Now they put a couple of blacks in place so they can get the facade that they're about diversity. But, let's go back to the money. In chess, you have tournament directors, like referees in baseball. I'll make that analogy. And so a little league referee is the equivalent of a club level referee or tournament director in chess. And to become a club level tournament director, where you can run a tournament for 60 people, you don't have to have any experience, and you could be any age, right? And that means you can generate income just by running chess tournaments. And so you got the little league, which is club level, and then you go all the way up to international arbiter, which is like a World Series referee. Well, in Africa, men have been international arbiters for decades of chess. These are the highest level referee you can reach. And in Africa, there are at least 2 women who are international arbiters. In the US, they didn't let the first black in to become an international arbiter until 2014. And he worked for them and still works for them on their board of directors. If you go to their page, the U.S. Chess Federation page, you'll see one black face on there. And that's the Sambo that's been working for them for over 30 years. So it's a last frontier of sports. But just think, if our children get this sport, they will be less likely to have the children lose their freedom, lose their health, or lose their lives. And they know that. So they have to keep this up. They have to keep it away from us. They have to give the facade that, oh, everybody's included, it's really, you can see how the organizations in Virginia and in Maryland, and then the Sambos in DC all work together to make sure that it looks like it's one big happy family.
But it isn't.
It's not. It's not. But nobody knows this is going on, though. Because there should be outrage if you see a director of a DC agency sitting on the board of an organization that's in Maryland and giving money, thousands and thousands of dollars to that organization. They've taken 3 Black DC council members to jail for less than that.
So let's talk about what we've been trying to do here with UDC, University of District Columbia, and the program we've been trying to get off the ground. We need some help. We need a push. Let's talk about that. Well,
we're going to be blazing a trail where there's never been a path, and the fact that your capabilities of being able to monitor, to be able to research and analyze the impact of chess on the human brain. That's work, that's research that's never been done in DC before. It has always been my hope for over 20 years that it would be engaged to be able to show scientifically how chess takes that child that they say is bipolar or ADHD and makes them into champions. I don't have those, capabilities to be able to do that. And so we have this. And then you mentioned something very, very, very important that I didn't even talk about. That is the impact on chess of delaying the impact of dementia on the mind. We didn't even talk about that because that's a whole nother arena that needs to be pursued, because through chess, proper instruction, proper teaching of chess.
That's the key. Proper instruction, it's not just teaching people how to move pieces.
Right.
So there's a difference. Right.
Yes, absolutely. But, so with UDC, the idea is that we're going to be able to sign our children up and the seniors up free. We'll be able to have free tournaments, free lessons, and it'll change things overnight. This is a nightmare that they don't want to see, but we're going to make sure that they dream. It's going to be a reality, not a dream to them, and our children will be able to take their place like they have with every other sport that people of color have had access to.
If people want to support and give money and cheer you on, where can they reach you? How can they reach you?
Well, we do have Instagram page, but we have an address is 914 K Street Northeast. And if they wanted to send a donation, we are a 501c3 organization, and they could send a donation there and make it out to DC State Chess Federation. And if they want to make contact with me, my email address is my first name, Vaughn_Bennett @yahoo.com. And
I want to spell Vaughn, for those of people listening to the podcast, is VAUGHN Bennett _Bennett BENNETT. I'll say that again, VAUGHN _Bennett BENNETT.
@yahoo.com. Yes, sir. That's right. I could go on and tell you a whole lot more, but I think we covered quite a bit. But the thing is the benefits of this game can save lives. To me, this is just as important as running into a burning building and pulling somebody out, patching up a life-threatening wound, or reviving somebody from doing CPR, which are all the things I did in the fire department. A lot of people don't really consider the effect and impact of what chess can do for everybody, because when you sit across from someone, it doesn't matter how much money they have, it's what they have in their heart and what they have in their mind. And you build a bridge with that person, regardless of whether you never see them again. There's a social bridge built. Why? Because you have to respect yourself, you have to respect your opponent, and you have to respect the rules. And so this is a tool that it's one of the best educational tools that I could ever imagine. And I'm so thankful that I've been blessed to be able to pursue this. And I'm thankful that, I've been moved in the direction of us uniting and working together.
Yeah, yeah. It's a blessing, and I just want to say thank you. Publicly, privately, I've said it privately, but to know the work you're doing out there for human beings, for human life, for the Black community, for Black children, to not just look past all the systematic issue that's been going on, but to see your opponent, but to see yourself first, to see who you are first, to see what you're purposeful and passionate about first, before you let anyone try to block you. You can still make your move and you can still win this game. And that is what you call a true education, or a true teacher that you are, and giving to your community. Could you charge all this money for people to take lessons? You absolutely could. You have the rating, you have the knowledge, but you're giving away free classes to people almost every day of the week. You're giving free classes to say, hey, let me teach you, because this is benefit for you. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're going to do this again. We're going to tack this on. We're going to let people play this out. We're going to let people download this and really take this in, because this isn't the first time this is happening to our community. And people say, oh, I've heard this story before. It's just now I didn't know it was in chess. I heard it was in volleyball. I heard it was in soccer. I heard it wherever you heard it. It doesn't need to happen. Right. So we need to keep telling our story, because if we don't tell our story, someone else tells a different story. So that's the one thing we have to learn to do, is tell our story. And thank you for telling our story.
Thank you. Thank you for blessing me to have this time, sir. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank everyone for listening to Bridges Live. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer, and this is Mr. Vaughn Bennett. And he is we talked about chess in America, chess in DC, but I want you to research chess in your own home. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're in someplace in a different state, New York, Jersey, Washington State. Understand what you're up against. If you have any questions, contact us, and we'll let you know, because this man's got the know-how, the intake, and understanding of what's going on, and have you ask the right questions to those coaches. Those coaches should not be charging you this much money to teach your child chess. Definitely. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll be back again sooner than later. Be kind, be compassionate, and be purposeful, and be intentional. And I hope to be out there with information, understanding, and hopefully it turns into an action. God bless and be kind.
Yes, sir.